So hello, everybody. Welcome to the International Trombone Hang. Thanks so much for being here. I know many of you have been here before, so welcome back. And for those of you that it's your first time, welcome. We hope that you enjoy the session, and we hope that you consider future sessions. Dave, Teo, and I are kind of moderating the session today. We'll be watching the chat. So if you are interested in asking some questions, feel free to type them in there, and we'll be happy to make sure that those make their way to the conversation and get answered. They'll happen more toward the end of the event. For those of you who are on the email list and receive emails from me, that's great. It's probably the best way to get the information, including the Zoom link. Feel free to share the flyer and feel free to share that email with your friends and colleagues who are trombone enthusiasts. We just ask that you do not post the Zoom link on a public social media platform. For example, your Facebook page or something like that. We try to make it so the Zoom link is only available for people that are kind of in the network. It's easy to get in the network, so just have people go to our website or contact one of us, and we can get them on the list so then they can get the emails for the future. I'm on Instagram posting a lot of this stuff. Dave's running a Facebook page. My website has a page dedicated to the International Trombone Hang. We have a YouTube channel, so we're not hard to find at this point. So do feel free to pass the word along. We really appreciate that. Other than that, most of us will be muted for the session. Today we have just a wonderful experience with Jay Friedman, who I believe was appointed principal trombone of the Chicago Symphony in 1962, if I am correct. And has
I joined the orchestra in 1962, but I was appointed principal in 65.
65. Okay, my mistake. Right. A pillar of the trombone community, needs no introduction. And one of his students, Hugo, and I'm gonna butcher your last name. Hold on. Saavedra.
Yeah, that's it. Saavedra. Yeah.
Saavedra, originally from Colombia, living in Chicago and doing some teaching and freelancing there, as well as places like El Sistema. Great trombonist. I sent out some links for a YouTube recital, or a recital that he has that's posted on YouTube, as well as his own website. So definitely check him out, and as we will today. That's pretty much all I got. Dave and Teo, am I missing anything?
No, I think it's good. We'll have, I think, some time for questions at the end. But in the meantime, if you just make sure that your audio is muted, unless you're planning to speak or say something, that would be appreciated. Thank you.
Jason, maybe the link story, not open the link, security stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The chat.
Oh yes, of course. Right. So with any online Zoom call, we try our best to monitor who has access to entering the room, all that, but, and we do allow the use of chatting. So feel free to chat with us, ask questions, talk amongst yourselves. Generally, if people post or if they say something about a resource of some kind, I'll try to find a link and post it up there. We all know about the Arbin, but if there's something that comes up that maybe we're not all familiar with, I'll try to find a link for it, which means you may see links in the chat, and that's fine. If you see a link that is unrecognizable and it's from someone you don't know and it's a privately sent message, we recommend that you bring it to our attention. That seems to be the way that some people might try to do some things in the online world. We've never had a problem at the ITH. I don't anticipate it, but if you don't know where it's from, maybe not click on it and just let us know, and then we'll make sure that it's a legitimate thing. So other than that, yeah. I think we're ready to go. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Jay Friedman. Take it away.
Okay. I'm going to have Hugo do a lesson too, and we'll treat it like I'm just giving him a lesson, which we do weekly, but we're going to concentrate on the fundamentals that I teach. So I always start with an Arbin. Yeah, I have everybody play, start each lesson out of the Arbin book and out of the beginning of the Arbin book. So just a moment. He's going to do the quarter note study at the beginning. Uh-oh. Yeah, we got some people that need to mute. Okay. So Hugo, do you want to do your do the Arbin study?
All right, so I'm going to start with the Arbin exercise number 17.
Yeah, and you're going to do it short first.
Okay.
Yeah, these are quarter note studies, but I always make people do them eighth notes in order to get the ear moving. Okay, so he'll show you. Okay, good. Yeah, good. Now, the object of doing it short is to get all of the air out of the sound and make sure that every note speaks instantly at full volume, whatever that volume is, probably mezzo forte. Okay, so that was pretty good. We're working on that week after week to get all of the air out of the sound, all the foreign elements out of the sound, so it's pure core. Okay, so and we're working on that week after week. All right, Hugo, you want to do it full length quarter notes now?
Okay.
Yeah, and the object of the short version of this, as I say, to get all the air out of the sound. And when we play them long as written, our body should feel exactly the same as the short version. There should be no difference in the way our body feels, because the note's going to speak at 100% resonance. Then we're going to let it naturally taper to the next note. So in reality, our body should feel exactly the same in the short version and the long version, because since the note is speaking at 100% resonance on the downbeat, all the work is done. Then we just go to the relaxed phase, let our lungs empty. The elasticity in the lungs will sustain the note. There is no pushing necessary if it starts at 100% resonance. Yeah, there is no pushing in the middle of the note. So we're trying to get that freedom, that efficiency. All right, Hugo, try it. He's going to play a full-length quarter notes that are going to taper naturally with no spaces. right, good, good. Now, can you say that the speed of your airstream at the beginning of notes in the long version was exactly the same as the short version?
Yes, it's quite the same. So I try to keep, as you say in the last exercise, I focus on the beginning of the sound that is clear and also it's
Right.
pure. And then I just let it ring automatically in every
Right,
note.
okay. Yeah, okay. Yeah, it was close. Yeah, it was close. Yeah. The speed of your air on the long version was slightly slower than the short version, but you know, we all do that. When we see a long note, we move our air slower, and when we see a short note, we move our air faster. That's a big mistake. Okay, yeah, even with slightly slower airstream on a long note, we want the same sound, no matter what the length of the note, no matter what the dynamic. We always want the same sound. That means we have to move our air the same speed, no matter the length of the note, no matter the dynamic, whatever, because we want the same sound. All right. And the same sound, and the best sound is achieved by getting the articulation over with as quickly as possible. A lot of people say, well, Jay Friedman likes really clean attacks. That's totally wrong. That is totally wrong. Yeah, I like the sound that happens after I start the note as quickly as possible and relax as quickly as possible. The articulation is only a way to get to the relaxed phase as fast as possible. That's what makes the best sound. Yeah, not the articulation. The articulation is only a way to relax quickly. All right, yeah, and the quicker we go to the relaxed phase, meaning no pushing in the torso, letting our lungs empty naturally with no action in the torso, that gives you the best resonance. So the articulation is only a way to relax quickly, and the faster you relax quickly, the better sound, the better the total sound is going to be. So, okay, after we do that, Hugo's going to play a Rochu for us out of book 1. And we're going to do the same thing that we did in the Arbin. We're going to play it articulated first. And we're going to play eighth notes just to make sure that we get the air moving exactly like it should, even in a legato etude. We still need to have the same relaxation and the same sound and the same ease of production when we play a legato etude. And that's different. I mean, that can be difficult because we're not articulating, but we still want that quality of sound. So go ahead and you don't have to do the whole thing short, just do a couple of phrases. Okay?
Okay, so I'm gonna play Rochu number 3.
Okay. Hugo. Yeah, Hugo, wait a minute. We're gonna play eighth notes first. Ba, 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 ba. Yeah, just like the Arbin.
Okay.
All right, because we're putting this under a microscope to make sure that our air is moving like it should, and the sound, therefore the sound will be like we want it to be, pure. Okay? Okay, now do that again. There were a couple of notes in there that were not, that didn't speak at 100% resonance on the downbeat. I mean, it was, you know, it was very close. But I think, yeah, I think they can speak at that volume even more instantly, which is going to give you more core in your sound. It's going to be a purer sound. All right, so try it again. There's a little delay on the first note. See if you can get rid of the delay. Okay, just move your air quicker. Pull your tongue away. The tongue is a backward movement, by the way. When somebody says you're tonguing too hard, that's impossible. Yeah, if somebody says you're tonguing too hard, it means it's a lack of air, because the tongue is a backward movement. So how can you tongue too hard if your tongue is going backward? Are you pulling it back too fast? No, that's a good thing. It's always a lack of air. Always. There's no such thing as tonguing too hard, because the tongue is a backward movement, right? That's in the Arbin book in one of the chapters. It says, he says, the tongue is a retrograde movement, meaning it goes back to let the air out. Now that was a pretty radical statement way back in 1830 when he wrote this book, 1840. Yeah, that was a pretty radical, because people are always saying, oh, you're tonguing too hard. It's always a lack of air behind the tongue, because as I say, the tongue is a backward movement. So how can you tongue too hard if it's going backwards? The faster you pull away the tongue and you replace it with the air, the better sound you're going to get. So that's my little diatribe about tonguing too hard. All right, Hugo, try it again and try to make them speak even quicker. We're trying to get rid of the delay between trying to make the sound start and actually making it start. That's what we're trying to eliminate. So you might have to build up a little more pressure behind a sealed embouchure. That's where the sound speaks quickly. It's the pressure built up instantaneously before the note. When there is pressure in the mouth, because the tongue seals the embouchure. I mean, I know that sounds simple, but yeah, it's very important. Okay, so go ahead. Try to make them speak quicker without playing louder. That's hard. Okay, yeah, that's getting good. Sometimes your D starts a little slower, and it doesn't have the same sound. That's what we're after. to get as much core as we can. 99.999% core. I'm always talking about that. If you look at my website, I'm always talking about pure sound. We don't want a dark sound. We don't want a bright sound. We don't want all these different types of sounds. We want a pure sound, which is as much core as we can possibly get. I always use it to the gold analogy. All right, if you bought your girlfriend or your wife a gold wedding ring or a gold ring, we don't want a 10 karat gold. We don't want a 14 karat gold. We don't want 18 karat gold. We want 24 karat gold, which is 99% pure gold with as little other things. And that's the kind of sound we want. Okay, a pure sound is not dark, it's not bright, it's not this, it's all core. That's why at the age of 81, I can play a bass trombone slide with a 3G mouthpiece and I don't sound tubby because I've learned to be much more efficient with what I do. And I wish I'd have found this out. I mean, I always kind of did it, but I didn't know why. I always had a clear sound and I always had a sound that jumped out of the horn. I just didn't understand why. I knew my airstream was fast too. And while we're at it, I want to talk about equipment. Yeah, I started out on a mouthpiece like a 6.5 AL. It was something like that. It was a Schilke, the Schilke 51B, which was my personal mouthpiece. I mean, I kind of designed it. I was just a kid, but so I thought in those days, I was going to be a principal player and I needed to specialize in the high register. So I needed a medium size mouthpiece because most of my playing as a principal player would be in the upper, not the high register, but it wouldn't be a bass trombone sound. Let's put it that way. So I thought, I need something, a medium-sized mouthpiece. That should work because I have to do a lot of high register playing. So I used that probably 30 years. And then I went to a 4G too, because like everyone else, there was an arms race, bigger and bigger and bigger. And then I had to play the Mahler third. I was a guest principal with the Atlanta Symphony. That was in the mid 90s or the early 90s. And I always played the Mahler third solo on a stock 3G mouthpiece on an old one that I happened to have. And it was very free blowing, but it was, the throat was a little too big for first trombone, especially on a bass trombone slide. But I practiced for a month on this mouthpiece, getting ready for this Mahler 3 performance. And when I came back after that, I couldn't go back to the 4G. I just couldn't, too, because the 3G fit my face. And a few years ago, I finally realized what a large mouthpiece does for you. And I wish I'd have figured this out 30 years ago. A large mouthpiece allows you to chart the inside of the mouthpiece. It allows you to make different sounds You can make a focused sound. You can make an unfocused sound because there's so much room in there. So consequently, nowadays that I've figured this out, and I've only figured it out in the last few years, as I say, I wish I'd figured this out about 30 years ago. I can chart the mouthpiece, and I can use my air in a way that I can make the mouthpiece sound smaller, and I can also make it sound larger than it actually is. So say on the Mahler third solo, the loud part of it, you want to take out the core, because when you play fortissimo, these modern instruments, they have too much core. And I always go back to this same theory. When the horn comes from the factory, it wants to be a laser beam loud and a foghorn soft. We have to reverse that. So in order to do that, you have to use your air very carefully, and a large mouthpiece allows you to aim your air in different parts of that mouthpiece. So when I play everything from forte down to pianissimo, I want my air to hit very high in the mouthpiece because, as a downstream player, like most of us are, 99.999% of us are downstream player. The only person that I see on trombone that's an upstream player is trombone shorty. Everybody else, their air goes down. So if you're a downstreamer and you're in the middle of the mouthpiece, you're going to have a lot of air in your sound because it's going to make this, the air is not going to go directly into the mouthpiece. That's how you make a mouthpiece sound bigger than it actually is. Okay? And when you play fortissimo, you don't want your air to go directly in the mouthpiece because that's going to put too much core in the sound. So I want my air, when I play fortissimo like the Mahler third solo, I want it to hit very low in the mouthpiece because I want it to take a long time to get into the throat. That's going to take the laser beam out of the sound in fortissimo. But the horn, as I say, when it comes from the factory, it wants to be a laser beam loud and a foghorn soft. We have to reverse that. We have to fight against that. Yeah, I often use the term fighting against the horn. Normally people would say, no, you don't want to fight the horn. Yeah, you never want to fight the horn. Some things I want to fight the horn on, the laser beam loud and the foghorn soft. I'm going to fight against that. Yeah, I'm going to make it make my sound. So I have to fight against the horn's natural tendency to be a laser beam loud and a foghorn soft. I want to put the laser beam in the soft playing, and I want to take the laser beam out of the loud playing. Yeah. And a larger mouthpiece allows you to do that. I don't sound tubby, even though at my age I'm playing a 3G with a bass trombone slide. It's very clear because I know where my air should be in the mouthpiece, basically high to make up for the fact that I'm a downstream player like everybody else. I want to control where my air goes in the mouthpiece. Yeah, you don't want to be in the middle for everything because that's going to let the horn decide what kind of sound you make at a certain dynamic. I want to control the sound that I make at a certain dynamic. And as I say, from forte down to pianissimo, I want as much core as I can get. Okay, yeah, it won't be a bright sound because on these modern instruments, you cannot make a small sound. It's impossible. You can't make a small sound, but you can make a dull sound. We don't need a dull sound because when you think about it, in the spectrum of an orchestra, where is the trombone section? It's not in the middle. It's in the lower third or the lower quarter of the sound spectrum of an orchestra. We don't need a dull sound. We're already at the bottom. We're just above the tuba and the double basses. We don't need a dark sound. We need a pure sound because we need to project without playing louder in order to project. If you get a pure sound, a clear sound with as little air or foreign elements in it, that sound is going to project at a softer dynamic. I've never had a problem projecting soft dynamics through the orchestra because I really aim for a pure sound, a clear sound. It's not dark, it's not bright, it's not this, it's not that. It is 99% core. Yeah, and the size of the instruments and the equipment that we're using these days, that are in vogue, that everybody has in the symphonic world, you can't make a small sound, but you can make a dull sound, and that's a huge mistake. So, okay. All right, Hugo, let's try articulating now full length that Rochu.
All right.
Yeah, full length, but articulated, exactly like you did the Arbin. Okay, with a very clear start, And as soon as that note speaks, you relax and you let it taper. Let your lungs empty naturally. It'll be sostenuto, but it'll be a very subtle diminuendo, just like on the Arbin, which is the way you'd sing it when you think about it. If these were originally vocalises for voice. So we wouldn't want to play these like an excerpt where every note is sustained at the dynamic all the way through the note. Like if it's a mezzo forte, you sustain all the way from the beginning of half note or a whole note all the way to the end at the same dynamic. You wouldn't do that because these are singing etudes. And since we claim that the trombone is the closest instrument to the human voice, we want to sound like we're singing. And if you've ever heard a great singer or any singer, nobody sustains the sound through every note exactly at the same dynamic. We don't sing, they don't sing that way, and we shouldn't play that way. Yeah. It's a very subtle diminuendo because right after the note speaks, we relax and we let our lungs empty, just like a singer would. Okay, so try it, Hugo. Hold on. Yeah, hold on, Hugo. Yeah, I heard a little bulge on the first note. Yeah, let's get rid of anything except the note speaking at 100% on, volume on the downbeat. All right, there's no delay in its speaking, so we can relax quickly because that's where the best resonance happens. It's in the relaxed phase. So we want to get the start of the note over with so we can relax quickly. That's the secret to a great sound. Okay? Jumping out of the horn softly. I still hear a little bulge. Yeah, I still hear, yeah, there's a tiny little bulge in that note speaking. Let's get rid of that. All right? I don't want an accent. I just want the note to start at 100% resonance so we can get to that relaxed phase even faster. That's going to give you a purer sound. Okay?
Okay.
Even if you have to play it short first. Yeah, play that first note short a couple of times. And yeah, see if you can get the delay in its speaking out. Okay, good. Yeah, good. Yeah, that's coming. I still hear a little air in that sound that I'm not crazy about. You know, I mean, when it comes to this kind of stuff, you know, I'm rather fanatical about the sound because I know you can get an absolutely pure sound with no air in it. Yeah, no darkness, no this, no that, pure core. All right. Okay. So, all right. Yeah, I'm working on that with you. I'm working, yeah, to get. So it's absolute core on the downbeat. Why? So we can relax quickly and let that sound ring through the duration of the note. Yeah, and you can't fix it in the middle. Yeah, that's another thing. Yeah, if it's a poor start, pushing in the middle will only make it worse. We got to go get another one and start it correctly. I mean, I know that some people would say, well, why do you want an accent on every note? That's not an accent. Yeah, a note that starts at 100% resonance instantly at whatever dynamic we pick, that's the way to get the best sound because we don't have to push with our torso, which absolutely kills sound. Okay? Yeah. This is your resonating chamber. This. Okay? So we try to work from the chin up as much as possible. That's the secret. Do your work from the chin up. Nobody can play absolutely, completely relaxed. It's impossible. It's impossible. Something has to work. Some part of the body has to make the muscle involvement that will propel the air. If it's from the chin up, you're fine. If you don't do all the work from the chin up, some other part of the body will take up that work, and that's going to wreck your sound. Okay? So, yeah. So whatever work we have to do, as I say, nobody in the world can play a horn, a brass instrument, absolutely, completely, 100% relaxed. It's impossible. But we want to be efficient, and the most efficient way is to work from the chin up and keep the rest of our body, and that includes the slide arm, this jerking the slide, and I'm going to talk about legato also. Yeah, jerking the slide arm kills resonance also. Okay? Yeah. And while we're on that, I want to transition to legato playing. When you think about it, The trombone naturally gives us two types of slurs. First, it gives us a very wide smeary slur naturally. Okay, yeah, that's what the trombone does. You know, these long shifts of position. If we don't do something to take out the smeariness, it'll be a gliss. And the other type of slur that the trombone naturally gives us is one that's maybe that wide. Lip slurs, changes of position, like one position change, that one's going to pop out very quickly. So the trombone world in general has said to itself, with exceptions, but mainly they've said, well, we don't want this one. We don't want the smeary legato that the trombone gives us. So we better take that one. Okay, because that's clean. It's not very smooth, but at least it's not a gliss. So I've said to myself, I don't want what the trombone's going to give me, either the long, smeary one or the quick, hard, short one. Yeah, I'm not satisfied with that. I want, a slur that looks like that. Not that, and not that. That, in effect, is fighting the horn in a sense, too. I mean, there are good fights and there are bad fights, but that's a good fight. Not taking the legato that the trombone gives us, too, because the trombone is not a musical thing by itself. We make it musical. I mean, they make, toilets out of the same materials that, that a trombone is made out of. It's metal tubing, right? It's not very musical by itself. So we have to make it musical. So therefore, I am not going to take that slur that the trombone gives me, and I'm not going to take that one either. I'm going to make the trombone do what the slur that I want, and it all goes back to the human voice. Okay? And it goes back to the phrase Belcanto, which meant connecting notes, phrasing through notes. I mean, there are a lot of definitions of that. I mean, if you look on the internet or you go back to old books, it was kind of a phrase that everybody had their own definition to. But the classical definition would be phrasing through words, connection of sound. So in order to get a slur that the trombone really doesn't want to give us, we have to kind of manufacture one ourselves. And I'll tell you the secret that I use for getting the type of slur that I want. And I'll demonstrate. All right, I've got my horn here. I always, when I have a legato articulation between two notes, I always try to go across the partial in the middle of that shift. Always in the middle. Not what most other people do. Change the partial when you get to the second note. That means you have too much sound on one side of the no change and you have no sound on the other side. So I always try to go across the partial in between notes in the middle of that shift. So if I take a middle B natural, yeah, I'm going to change. Yeah, I'm going to start changing that partial as soon as I start moving the slide, because the air is slow and the slide is fast. And in order to make up for that fact, I have to try to start going across that partial as soon as I start moving the slide. And if I'm lucky, I'll go across that partial right in the middle of that shift. That gives me about that much sound between notes. Whereas if I jerk the slide fast, I'm going to leave some sound out there. Yeah. When I'm coming in, when I have a slur where I'm coming back to first or second position, I always imagine the slide as a basket, and I'm bringing the sound, all of the sound, back to second position. I mean, it could be first, it could be second, it could be third, too. Yeah, I imagine the sound as a basket, and I try to keep all of the sound in front of the slide. In other words, yeah, I don't want to get the slide movement ahead of the airstream. Yeah, I want to bring the sound, all of it, in front of the slide. There's a little bit of sound between that note. Okay, maybe some people would say, well, he doesn't play clean. Yeah, great. I don't want to play clean. I want to play smooth. Legato is made up of 50% clean and 50% smooth. It's not 100% clean and it's not 100% smooth. It's a combination of half of each. So I'm not going to let the trombone decide my legato and move the slide as fast as I can in order to avoid any sound between notes. I'm going to move it. Sometimes I'll move the slide fast if my air is fast. And sometimes I'll move it smoother if my air is slower, but I never move the slide slow. It goes exactly with the airstream. And when I'm going out, I have a different process of thinking about slide and air movement. I try to imagine that I'm blowing the slide out, say from first to fifth, F to F sharp in the bass clef staff. Yeah. I imagine that my airstream is actually blowing the slide out, that my arm is not leading. Yeah. I'm actually blowing the slide out, which is a different thought process than if I'm coming in. So it'd be once again, I try to cross that partial right in the middle of that shift, say around third position, but I'll probably start slurring up to that partial right after I leave second, maybe before third, because the slide is always fast and the air is slow. Yeah, and I have this thing about legato. I want to take whatever sound I get on the note, and I want to move a full sound all the way through that shift. In other words, I don't want any diminuendo in resonance when I'm moving the slide. So I take a full sound and I move a full sound through that shift. That means that your air and slide have to be perfectly coordinated. I don't want to get the slide ahead of the airstream, and I don't want to get it behind the airstream either. But moving air and slide together so that you go across that partial, not when you get to fifth, because that's too late. That's going to give you a gliss all the way down to fifth, and then there's going to be no legato on the other side of that note change. Yeah, I want an even amount of legato sound to, so I don't move the slide as fast as possible. Yeah, I move it according to the speed of the airstream. I'll do it again. If I did it in slow motion, it would be. Yeah, if I slowed it down to 33 and a third, too, that's what it would sound like. But I speed it up just enough to keep the connection, a full resonant connection between those notes, but without a gliss. And as I say, that's not taking the slur that the horn wants to give me. That's my choice. I'm making the horn do exactly the slur that I want, which is not this, and it's not that, it's that. So, and when you have a big shift, like G octaves are always a problem. The trick is always to not come from underneath that slur. So you want to be ahead of the slide with your lip and your airstream so that by the time the slide gets there, you're already playing that note. Then you won't come from underneath and get other notes in there. A lot of people have trouble with a slur like that octave jump when you move the slide. Yeah, make sure that you're playing that note, the upper G, as the slide arrives so that you're not late. In other words, we don't body English the slide up there to make sure that the note comes out, because it never works. I mean, it's not something you can put your money on. Yeah, and I want something that's going to work for me every single time. I mean, if I'm sitting in the orchestra, and I have to play that by myself out of, 3,000 people, I want something that I can rely on. And getting the air there just before the slide will work for you under duress and, all kinds of other circumstances. So try not to jerk the slide and drop the air and try to body English it out, because that's not a recipe that you want to put your money on, because it'll let you down a lot of the time. So, okay. Should we go to questions now, Jason?
Sure, we can, absolutely. There have been some questions that have come in, and so I'll probably just address these kind of in order.
Sure.
So at the beginning, you talked about relying on the elasticity of the lungs and just not working from the chin up and doing as little as possible from essentially the chin down, right?
Right.
but for players that there are a lot of players that either have a habit of maybe squeezing or pushing. And I think even as teachers and players, we used words like push and we use words like move, like to move air. So can you maybe expand a little bit on how one would try to develop that kind of relaxation here when there's work to be done?
Right. Well, I have to tell you, when I play a short note and then I play a longer note, like in the Rochu, my body feels exactly the same on both of them. It feels the same. Here, I'll show you. My body feels exactly the same short or long because I instantly relax and let my lungs empty. And there's enough elasticity in the lungs where if you start emptying them at a very quick rate, they will deflate themselves. Okay. Now look, yeah. If you're playing some excerpt that's long, loud notes, fortissimo, and you run out of air, then you can use the torso. I mean, you know, yeah. There are times when we have to squeeze out the last bit of air from our lungs using the diaphragm, but that's not the way to play everything. Yeah, that's only when our lungs are empty and we have to sustain something at a louder dynamic, we have to squeeze the last bit of air out of our lungs, then we can use the torso. But the less you use the torso, the better sound you're going to get and the better efficiency you're going to have, and you're going to get less tired too. You're going to be stronger in the embouchure. So yeah, that's my answer to that.
Great. If it's okay to go in order, so some of the questions might pop around a little bit. You had mentioned that you went from, I think, the 51D to the 3G mouthpiece, and that was a specific experience that happened for you. Can you, it's going to be different for everyone, but can you talk about what you typically would recommend players in terms of how big should they go, or should they scale up slowly, or should they just jump in the deep end and get a big mouthpiece and try to figure it out? Like, how do you approach that either in your own career or maybe with students?
Yeah. Well, I'd say each case would be different. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't start a beginner player on a 3G, you know, something like that. I've started them on a medium. Yeah, I just found, you know, after so many years of, you know, not knowing, not figuring out. Yeah, there's an old saying that I heard once, that it's what you learn after you know everything that counts, you know, in a certain trombone playing. Yeah, it's what you learn after you know everything. It's the after part, you know. I thought I knew everything, about equipment, about air, about how to use air, things like that. And I was doing a lot of it, but a lot of it I wasn't. But this idea of I can make more different sounds on my mouthpiece that I use now. I can make a very clear sound when I play soft. That's because to make up for the fact that I'm a downstream player in everything except fortissimo, I want my air to get very high in the mouthpiece here. I mean, you probably can't see it. It's a very subtle difference in embouchure. But yeah, I'm a downstreamer. You know, it's probably here. Okay, Yeah, when I play everything except fortissimo, I want my air to go directly into the hole as possible. Now, I know scientists have done tests about when we exhale air from our lungs, it goes everywhere. I know that. But this is a very powerful tool. Yeah. If you make a conscious effort to aim your air somewhere, and it doesn't matter where it is, the body will find a way, and it will actually change the sound. So even though scientists would tell us when you exhale air, it goes everywhere. So, but the mind is a powerful tool, and the mind will find a way to change that sound. I mean, if I was going to play soft, I want a very small airstream that's going to hit very high in the mouthpiece because I'm a downstreamer, and I want to make the mouthpiece sound smaller than it is to make up for the fact that the horn wants to be a laser beam loud and the foghorn soft. So I have to fight against that. So I'm going to put the core, and I'm going to use the fact that the mouthpiece has enough room in it where I can get my airstream hitting in different places. So in other words, I'm not going to be in the middle for everything. You know, like in order to get the same sound, I have to play exactly the same way. That's not true. That's not true because the horn wants to be a laser beam loud and the foghorn soft. Yeah. In order to get the same sound at different dynamics, we have to do completely different things because we have to fight against the horn. The horn is not going to help us. We have to make the best sound that we possibly can. So if I'm playing fortissimo, say the first note of the Mahler third solo, you know, middle A, and I want to take the laser out of the sound to, I want to make the mouthpiece sound larger than it actually is. I'm going to move the mouthpiece up on my face, and I want my air to hit very low in the mouthpiece because it's a downstream player. It's going to take a long time to get in the throat of the mouthpiece, and it's going to make, it's going to take the core out of the sound because I want to remove as much core from the sound as I can when I'm playing fortissimo. So rarely am I in the middle of the mouthpiece. Yeah, when I play the middle softer dynamic, I'm high in the mouthpiece. Yeah, and when I'm playing the loud 2D dynamics, then I'm going to be very low in the mouthpiece. That's going to give, that's going to take what the trombone wants to do, and it's going to reverse it, and it's going to give me the same sound, you know, as much as I can get soft and loud. I can play soft with such a clear sound on this equipment. And I don't want to, I don't want to say because I play a bass trombone slide that I'm trying to sound like a bass trombone. The only reason I play a bass trombone slide, and it's a lightweight slide, is because it is free blowing. It's more free blowing. It feels like a great 42 slide. I mean, I play Bach, obviously, but I would do the same thing on a con too. I mean, I like con also. I like all good horns, but I play a bass trombone slide because it's more free blowing. Little resistance. Yeah, I don't sound like a bass trombone, and I couldn't if I tried. But I can make that sound very pure and centered when I play soft to where I use my air and how I use my air in the mouthpiece. And a larger mouthpiece gives us more options to counteract what the natural tendency of the horn wants to do, which is not what we want. Okay, we have to make the horn do what we want. And that means fighting against the fact that it wants to be a laser beam loud and a foghorn soft. It's so important. Does that answer that question? I didn't mean.
It does, and no, it's great. A couple of questions related to the mouthpiece and related to this concept. It sounds like you're talking about actually just placing the mouthpiece slightly differently. Do you ever put any consideration into changing the angle of the mouthpiece, or do you ever think about your embouchure and what that is doing, or is it just kind of where the horn is sitting?
Yeah, I'm not changing embouchure at all. It's the same embouchure where the air strikes in a slightly different place. You probably can't even see it. Yeah. If I showed you the extreme, you probably couldn't see it. Yeah, here's my normal playing. It's a little above center. And if I play fortissimo, I'm probably here, just below center. So it's pretty subtle. Yeah, I don't know if it's obvious, to the naked eye. But I do play very carefully everything I play now. Boy, I wish I'd have known this 30 years ago. Oh my God. Yeah, because when I used to like the first note of the Mahler third solo, middle A, I thought, well, the best place to be is in the middle. Obvious, right? Wrong. There's going to be too much core in that sound. Too much core. You've got to take the laser out of the fortissimo playing. So now when I play that note, I'm very low in the mouthpiece. It makes the mouthpiece sound much larger without having to, do other things. It's just where the air hits in the mouthpiece. And the larger mouthpieces gives you those options. You have more possibilities for counteracting the natural tendency of the trombone, as I say, to be a laser beam loud and a foghorn soft. It gives you more options. Yeah, the smaller the mouthpiece, and I would say the smaller the mouthpiece, your options diminish for the choices of the type of sound that you make. You're less able to change the type of sound that you're making. That's what I've found in the last few years.
Great.
Okay.
Yeah. Another question. This is a completely different direction. Do you have a favorite living composer?
Yes. Yeah, I have to say, living composer. Oh boy. A favorite living composer. Well, I think John Coriano is pretty special. Yeah, I think he's older now, but he's written some really good things. I can tell you who my all-time favorite composer is.
Who's that?
Well, that's Sibelius. I love Mahler, I love Beethoven, I love, there's all of them. I love Tchaikovsky, I'm a 19th century guy. Yeah, I'm stuck in the 19th century. That's why I play all these, 19th century horns, because I'm stuck in the 19th century, my taste is. But Sibelius touches me more deeply than other great composers, too. But the only piece that ever made me cry, actually brought tears to my eyes, was the end of the Mahler 8th Symphony. It was in Frankfurt, and I went to to a concert with the Frankfurt Radio Orchestra, and they played the Mahler Eighth with a bad conductor, but the end of that piece brought tears to my eyes. That's the only piece that's ever done that in a performance.
It's amazing, even with a bad conductor.
Right. He couldn't wreck it. I'm not saying who it was, but
That's
well,
totally
no.
fine. Yes.
The
Another
music is too powerful.
Another question came in, and this one has to deal more kind of, I guess, in relation to the longevity of your particular career. You've been a specialist for 50 years or more, doing such a high level of play. But as we know, the body changes as it ages. Is there anything that you've had to do in your approach to practice or prepare to do your job that has changed as a result of noticing some aspects of aging?
Right. Yeah, well, I probably don't have the air that I used to have, and I probably don't have the technique that I have, because now I'm more concerned with exactly what I've been talking to you about. The quality of the sound, how to get it. I mean, I used to have a lot of technique. Oh my God, all over the horn, so fast. Now, yeah, I mean, I'm not interested. Yeah, I'm not that interested in technique, because yeah, exactly what I've been talking about in this session, how you make a great sound. That's really what I'm interested in now. So my technique has probably suffered because I don't place that much emphasis on it. But I would say, yeah, embouchure-wise, yeah, your body ages, but I was never one of these people that had, huge lungs. I wasn't, I always had, I mean, I have a small frame, I'm not that tall, so my lungs aren't that huge. So I never was one of these people that had an abundance of air. I just had to be, I would say, as I've described in this session, I'm a lot more aware of being efficient. So I would say that I haven't noticed anything embouchure-wise that I've lost. As I say, I've lost some technique because I don't place as much emphasis on it, too. So that's probably the major thing. But I've become a lot more efficient now than I used to be. And as I say, recognizing, categorizing what I do now, whereas before, I just did it naturally. I mean, my teacher, Robert Lambert, who was a principal before, in the CSO before I was, he had the same type of natural playing style that I have. Very clear sound, very clean. So I kind of heard it from him. Yeah, and I kind of, you always copy your first teacher, or one of my first teachers, too. So I always had that, but it's only in the last few years where I have figured out why I do things, and that's made me a lot more efficient. So as my body has aged, I've actually become much more efficient, and I know why I do things now rather than just doing them naturally before.
Well, if I can ask you a question about that relates to a question that came in, because you have mentioned that, you learn how to do it first, and then you actually learn even more about how to do it, and that kind of comes later. So now that you've kind of had this, these epiphanies about some more of the nuance of what you're doing, has that affected the way you think about it while you are playing? Or do you feel like while you're playing, you're still just trying to be very natural about it, not thinking the mechanical side of it?
Right. I have to move because my computer is running out of power. So hold on just a second and I'll plug it in. And I will come and I'll get in front of it again. Yeah, sorry. I'm going to get my chair. Okay. All right, now give me a short version of that question again. Sorry.
Yeah, not a problem. So we all practice, and we all at times have to think about what's going on. And sometimes people think about the mechanics of it while they're playing, and sometimes they don't think about the mechanics of it while they're playing. You mentioned that you've had all these kind of like further understandings and these layers of understandings that have kind of come on as of late. Has that changed the way you think about it while you play? And I guess if it does, okay. If it doesn't, then how do you differentiate between practicing and playing? Like, how do you develop the ability to be that analytical player and then shut it off when it's time to play?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, there's a way to do that. Yeah, there's a way to do that. Well, here it is here's a perfect example. When I teach vibrato, and that is a personal, that's a very personal thing. Some schools of playing advocate using vibrato and others don't. Okay. I'm kind of freewheeling about it. I use it for some things like solo playing, but I'm very careful in the orchestra when I use it too. But the way I teach vibrato is a totally non-musical method. I mean, I give people, when my students want to learn how to use vibrato, I'll give them an exercise which is just long tones, and I won't let them use it on music too, because in order to develop it properly, you need to separate it from music. Yeah, and I know that sounds unmusical, and it's meant to be. They physically need to be able to produce the right kind of vibrato and be able to control it perfectly before they ever put it on music, because as soon as they start playing music and they don't have control of the vibrato, it'll become a habit and they won't be able to control it. So that was Arnold Jacobs. One of his primary things, one of his most important teaching ideas. He said, if you want to add a new aspect of a concept to your playing, completely separate it from your normal playing. Completely separate it and work on it absolutely separately. Yeah, and then slowly integrate it into your normal playing. But at the beginning, you have to separate it. Yeah, you have to put it in a different room and only work on that new aspect that you're trying to add separately and all by itself, so that you gain control of it. That's how I teach the vibrato. I have people play long tones, and I'll have them, and I'll have it, I'll say, I'll say, do it at different speeds. Pow, wow, 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 wow. And it's an airflow thing. It's not bending pitch. It's just, yeah. It's like a crescendo, diminuendo on the same pitch. We don't want people bending pitch when they're learning to use vibrato. So you take it, yeah, and you completely separate it from music too, because you're working on the technical aspect of actually producing vibrato, and you want to be a virtuoso at the technical aspect. Yeah. Otherwise, you're not gonna be able to control it. And a lot of people would say, well, if I practice vibrato too much, I won't be able to control it. It's exactly the opposite. When you don't practice it separately and really get control of it, then you won't be able to control it. Yeah, if you practice it separately and really get skillful at the actual production of it, you'll always be able to control it. That's my answer.
Great, great answer. If we just have time for one more question.
Sure.
Very, you have and continue to have a wonderful career, and you've been such a significant and impactful contributor to the world of trombone. We rarely get to write our own legacy, but if you could sum up what you hope people remember most about your contribution to the trombone industry, what would you sum it up as? If you had the chance to write that, what would you say? What would you want to be remembered for in terms of your trombone contribution?
Right. Well, yeah, everybody thinks that the Chicago Symphony brass section, especially the trombone, plays everything loud and long. My colleague, Michael Mulcahy, back when he first got in the orchestra, after he was in a few years, he said, Jay is the greatest soft specialist in the world playing soft. So there's nobody close. That's always been my, what I thought was my greatest compliment. And I always took special pride in my ability to play really soft, with control and things like that, which is the opposite of what, people think about, the Chicago Symphony, the brass, especially the trombone section. So I've always, that's the most important aspect of playing that I've always tried to do the best at.
And can I just ask a question following on that? Is there any specific ways that you approach that you feel develop that ability to play soft? Because I think all trombonists are, struggling with soft playing, especially in the high stuff.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah, I always think, well, I haven't thought about it lately, but if I would try to describe it to students or to colleagues, I always visualize the embouchure as an elevator. And if I want to hit a certain note, I always think of the embouchure as an elevator going up to that floor and always blowing across a level surface. That means being very proactive here. I mean, there's a certain fear of, I call it fear of flying, that we're not strong enough you know, to hit a certain note, you know, probably in the upper register softly. So we kind of hedge our bet and we underset and we try to squeeze it out too. Yeah. And that's not the best way. Think of your embouchure as an elevator and you send it up to a certain floor and you want to blow across a level surface. We are stronger here than we think. But if we're a little afraid of it, then we're liable to underset, and try to squeeze it out. That will work, but not all the time. That's worked for me, you know.
You wouldn't put your money on that,
Right, yeah.
you say.
Yeah, put your money on the right things, and it's not always what the horn wants to do. Sometimes we need to fight the horn. Sometimes we don't, but you know, sometimes, yeah, we pick our fights with the horn.
Well, this has just been fantastic. I can't thank you enough for the time that you've been willing to share with us. And Hugo, thank you so much for playing and demonstrate, you know, being able to demonstrate some of the concepts through the lesson. I hope that you got a lot out of it as well. And thank you everyone for coming today. We're going to post this eventually on our YouTube channel, so people that weren't able to make it today can get a chance, get an opportunity to be a part of this. But let's all just take a moment and thank both Hugo and Mr. Friedman for giving their time and joining us and sharing just some wonderful insight. And we hope to put it to good use and make you proud in the trombone community. So thank you.
And if anybody has any more questions, I'm always available by email, and I try to answer them pretty quick because I don't want them to pile up. Okay.
Well, and what I can do, if you're okay with it, is I'd be happy to send out an email, or I can share your email address to the group, so that if they do have questions, they can get a hold of you personally, as long as you're okay with that.
Yeah, and I answer them through my website also.
Great.
The same thing.
And for those of you, if you haven't been to Mr. Friedman's website, he's had a blog for a while now, and he has written some fantastic articles on his opinions. And he's not one to mince words. You know,
Yeah.
If you want to know what his opinion is, you go read those articles. You'll get some opinions, and they're fantastic. So, you know, share them with your students, and, you know, find some time to read them as well.
You're going to hear the same old stuff that I just talked about today, unfortunately. But there's some fun stuff on there too about conductors and, you know, things like that. So
great. Awesome. Well, we won't take any more of your time. Thanks everybody for tuning in to the ITH. We've got a couple of more sessions scheduled for January. So check the website. I'll send out the flyers and all that, and encourage your friends and colleagues to join us in the future. And we'll see you at the hang. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Goodbye,
Bye.
everybody.
Thank you.
thanks for coming, everybody.